Whipping is a really cool technique. It's about getting the back end out, stepping it out, bring it out and bring it back underneath you again. It's a really cool trick. It looks really awesome. It doesn't really have much application in going faster, but it looks really cool. It's a nice fun thing to do on the trails and on the jumps. So first things that you want to consider is that you need to do it somewhere. It's a little bit easier to do it when you get a little bit more time in the air. So the steeper the jump, sometimes it's a little bit easier. So it's great to practice on dirt jumps, maybe even on a tabletop for less risk. And another thing to think about is it's a lot easier to do with a landing. So if doing this to flat isn't really going to work, landing sideways, the bike's just going to high side you. You actually need a landing to practice this. So when you step the back wheel out and you're bringing it back, the front wheel lands first and it'll pull that back wheel down. So you don't never want to be landing flat and sideways. Again, also another nice thing is it's a little bit easier to do like with a little bit less speed. So again, at the dirt jumps, the more time you can get in the air, going slower, popping, getting up nice and high, it's a little bit easier to practice that technique better than going, or a little bit easier to practice rather than going faster. So the faster you're going, it ends up being a little bit more of a scrub, and it's a little bit higher risk as well. So the first couple of things that go into getting your whip going is about the lip and the takeoff. So as you're coming up with the lip and the takeoff, it's about turning your bar as you're going off the lip. So not necessarily the same as a scrub where you have to actually be carving off the lip. As you're going up in the air, as you're leaving the lip, you want to start turning your bar to get the direction of the bike going. So that's the first thing that you need to think about. Another thing you want to think about is just that in case you start practicing this as you're turning your bar and your hips, if you're landing sideways, just make sure that your arms and legs are nice, relaxed and bent, and you will be doing a lot of sideways landing when practicing this. So just something to be aware of. Make sure that your arms and legs are nice and relaxed to absorb that and get to straighten the bike out. It is quite harsh, especially when practicing this. You might just kick the back end out and you might just end up landing like that. So until you're able to get the back wheel back underneath you, just something to be aware of. Make sure that when you're practicing this, that you're not straightening out your limbs in the air.
Hey guys, quick reminder, if you haven't liked and subscribed already, if you could, I'd much appreciate it. I'm really enjoying making these videos and I'd love to carry on doing it. Enjoy.
So the technique to your whip is about basically everything happens as you're going off the lip. So as I'm going up off the lip, the first thing I'm doing is a bit of a turn bar. So I'm turning my handlebar to guide the back wheel out. So as my bar is turning, I'm then going to turn my hips into the technique. So what that does is as my bar is turning, I'm turning my hips, and that's going to start stepping my back wheel out. Now I can't just do the one without the other. You'll see just jumping and just turning my bar is not necessarily going to kick the back wheel out. You need to do it in conjunction. Some people also just turn their hips and that steps the bar out, and they keep the wheel straight and they turn and it steps out a little bit, but it just looks uncomfortable. It doesn't not the full motion for a whip. So the first thing that you need to be doing is as you're going off the lip, you're turning the bar first and you're turning your hips into the technique. As it's turning in, that's going to step your back wheel out. As your feet are then also going to push the last little bit of extension to get your bike nice and sideways. Then to redirect and start straightening up again, you're going to redirect, turn your handlebars straight. As you're turning your handlebars straight, you're going to turn your hips and you're going to pull your hips straight as well, and your feet are then going to start pulling the bike back underneath you. This is very important to understand that on the way up is when you're actually stepping the bike out, and on the way down is when you're redirecting and pulling the bike back down underneath you. So up is for the whip, getting it sideways, and down, when you're going down in the air, is about getting the bike straightened up again underneath you. So also very important, if the bike is still a little bit stepped out, you can put the front wheel down first, and if your front wheel's straight, it's going to pull the bike straight. So even if your bike's a little bit sideways and the back wheel's not down yet, you put the front wheel down and it's going to drag and straighten the bike up the last little bit to straighten that bike out just before you land it, and it helps just save your back wheel in the long run. So you can whip in both directions. So it is personal preference, and you can choose whichever side you want to go. So sometimes if your lead foot is forward, so if my front foot is forward, my hips are already open this direction, so it might make it a little bit easier to turn the bar and then turn my hips into that already. So some people prefer that, but you can also do the complete opposite. You can turn your bar and turn your hips the opposite direction. Again, when getting your bike straightening up on the landing, also very important, when your bike's kicked out and it's sideways and you're coming down, as your hips turning back in, so you turn the bar, you're turning your hips back in, you can also apply a little bit of downwards pressure on your toes, and that'll help just to pull and push your feet back. It's great for flat pedals again as well. So as you're coming in, your toes are also turning and just guiding your bike down underneath you. Another really important thing to understand about the whip is your chest direction. So as you're coming up the takeoff, you do the whip, you get sideways, you need your chest to be facing straight. You don't want to be turning all the way into a technique. If I carry on turning my chest, I'm going to carry on turning for a 180 or 360. So it's very important that your chest needs to be facing straight. What this does is as my hips are turning like that, my shoulders also going to turn, and I'm going to straighten out my bar on the way down, and this my chest facing forward is going to straighten up my hips and allow me to pull the bike back underneath me. So to start with your whip, in order to progress, the first thing you want to do is just get used to turning your bar. Something like this behind me that I'm coming up on kind of guides me in the direction to start the whip already. So as I'm leaving the lip, just start by practicing turning your bar a little bit, just get used to that. Basically that's the first point that's going to guide the direction of the bike in order to whip. You can also then practice the hip turn, so just basically turning your hips, that'll step the back end out a little bit, and then after that you practice, you put them all together, and that's where your whip comes from. You're going to start with the bar turn, and you're going to turn your hips, and that's where that stepping out motion of the bike is going to come from.
I really hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you learned a lot. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, or it would mean a lot. Anyhow, jump on to the next video and let's see what else you can learn.